He spent nearly 10 years learning to be silent. High on a mountain above the clouds, above the wind, above everything that wanted to make him into a weapon, a young man from Windhelm sat with monks who had sworn their voices to peace. They taught him that the shout, the ancient sacred power his people called the Thu'um, was not a tool for war. That the voice given to men by the gods was a form of prayer, not a blade. He was good at it, better than most who had come before him. The monks saw in him something worth keeping. He left anyway. A war had begun. He felt he had no choice. That young man's name was Ulfric Stormcloak, and the choice he made when he came down from that mountain, and everything that was done to him in the years that followed, is the true beginning of the civil war that would tear Skyrim in half. Take a slow breath. Settle in. There is no hurry here, and the night is long. Two sides. Both of them right about something. Both of them wrong about something. And somewhere underneath all of it, a third party that wanted neither of them to win. And that had been working toward that outcome longer than anyone in Skyrim knew. By the time we reach the end of this, the war will look different than it did at the beginning. That is a promise. To understand what the Civil War is actually about, you have to travel backwards, past the moment a high king died in a great hall in solitude, past the skirmishes in the mountain holds, past the arrest of a soldier turned rebel and the small piece of cloth stuffed in his mouth to keep him from using his voice. You have to go back to a war that the people of Skyrim had nothing to do with starting, and everything to do with surviving. The Great War. In 4E 171, the Third Aldmeri Dominion sent a delegation to Emperor Titus Mede II. The Thalmor, the ruling council of high elven supremacists at the Dominion's center, arrived with demands. They wanted the Empire to ban the worship of Talos. They wanted the Blades, the Emperor's elite guard, disbanded. They wanted significant territory in Hammerfell handed over. The Emperor refused. Within days, the Thalmor sent their answer in a cart, the severed heads of every Blade agent they could find. The Great War began. Here is something worth holding on to, because it matters later. The Thalmor's demand to ban Talos worship was not bureaucratic housekeeping. It was targeted. Talos, also known as Tiber Septim, was a man who became a god. A Nord, by most accounts. The first emperor of Tamriel, who united the continent through war and will, and then, at the end of his life, ascended to sit among the 9 divines. The Thalmor's theology holds that no human can ascend to godhood. That the very idea of Talos as a divine figure is an insult, a lie told by a lesser race. To ban Talos worship was not just politics. It was a statement. You are not divine. Your greatest hero was only a man. The Empire bent to it. That is where the wound began. The war itself was devastating. The Aldmeri forces invaded Hammerfell and Cyrodiil simultaneously. By 4E 174, the Imperial city itself had fallen. The White Gold Tower was looted. The Emperor led a counterattack, retook the city, and drove back the Dominion forces in what became known as the Battle of the Red Ring. But the cost was catastrophic. The Empire was exhausted. The Aldmeri Dominion was not. In 4E 175, Emperor Titus Mede II signed the White Gold Concordat. The treaty ended the war. It also gave the Thalmor essentially everything they had originally demanded. Talos worship was banned across the Empire. The Blades were disbanded, and Hammerfell was ceded, a decision that so outraged the Red Guards that they fought on independently for 5 more years until they drove the Dominion out themselves, becoming a free nation and an adversary of their former Imperial allies in the process. The Jarls of Skyrim were never asked about the Concordat. They were presented with it. Imperial law required their compliance. According to in-game accounts, the Emperor sent chests of gold to smooth the acceptance of a treaty that had stripped one of their gods from the altars. Not every Jarl was silenced by the gold. Not every Nord was able to look away. There is one particular Nord who could not look away at all. And what happened to him next is the part of the story most people never fully reckon with, even those who have played every hour of Skyrim. Ulfric Stormcloak was the son of Hogue Stormcloak, Jarl of Windhelm. Around 4-161, when he was still a young man, the Greybeards chose him to study the Way of the Voice at High Hrothgar. This was an extraordinary honor. The Greybeards were the keepers of the Thu'um, a philosophical order founded in the First Era on the principle that the voice was sacred, not martial. Their Grandmaster was an ancient dragon named Parthenax, who had turned from violence and devoted centuries to peace. Their mountain home sat 7,000 steps above the rest of Skyrim, separated from the world below by altitude and intention. Ulfric spent nearly 10 years there. He learned the Thu'um. He was genuinely good at it. His shouts would one day be powerful enough to be used as weapons, and he understood the ancient words well enough to deploy them with precision that non-dragonborn humans almost never achieve. But the Greybeard's philosophy asks something more than mastery. It asks for a life shaped by peace. Violence, in their creed, is the last resort, to be used only in times of what they called true need. Most who study there either commit to that life or eventually leave. When the Great War broke out in 4E171, Ulfric left. He felt he could not remain in silence while his people were dying. He joined the Imperial Legion. He was captured during the Aldmeri campaign to take the Imperial city. What happened to him in that captivity is where the history of Skyrim becomes something darker than most people ever fully absorb, even when they are standing in an embassy, reading the document that contains it all. We will reach that document before the night is through. What it says and what it means changes everything that comes before it. For now, the Thalmor interrogated him. They had learned who he was, the son of the Jarl of Windhelm, trained by the Greybeards, a man with both political value and a rare and exceptional skill. They worked on him until he broke. And then they made him believe that the information he gave under interrogation had been crucial in the fall of the Imperial city. The Imperial city had already fallen before he told them anything. His breaking had no military consequence. But he did not know that. He was released, allowed to escape, and sent back into the world carrying the weight of a guilt that was entirely false, planted there deliberately by the people who had just turned him into an asset. After his release, Ulfric rejoined the Legion and fought in the Battle of the Red Ring, which recaptured the Imperial city. He distinguished himself. Then the White Gold Concordat was signed, and Talos worship was banned, and Ulfric came home to Windhelm to find his city in mourning and his people calling out for someone to stand against the elven supremacists who had just stripped their god from the law of the land. He became their Jarl. He formed a militia. He proved his worth as an ass. There is a city called Markarth, built into the mountains of the Reach in Skyrim's southwest. It is old, older than the Nords, older than most things standing in Tamriel. The Dwemer built it as a fortress city called Anchuan Dzel. After the Dwemer vanished, the native people of the Reach, called the Reachmen, moved into its stone bones. For centuries, the Nords and the Reachmen have disputed who the city belongs to. The Reachmen have never stopped believing the answer is them. In 4E174, while the Great War pulled Imperial legions south to fight the Aldmeri Dominion, the Reach was left almost undefended. The Reachmen saw their moment. Led by a man named Madanach, they rose up and took Markarth. The Jarl, Hrolfdir, was driven out of his own city. What came next is documented in in-game sources that contradict each other. Deliberately so, the surrounding context suggests, because this dispute is not settled in the lore and was never meant to be. One account, from an Imperial scholar named Arianus Arius, describes the Reachmen's 2-year kingdom as relatively peaceful. They administered their territory fairly. They had begun to petition the Empire for recognition as a legitimate province. Arius records only a few of the harshest Nord landowners put to death. The kingdom, in his telling, was making a genuine case for its right to exist. Jarl Igmund, Hrolfdir's son, disputes this directly in his dialogue. He describes chaos, nobles desperate for peace who were refused. He calls Arius's account the apologetics of a man who was not there. The truth depends on who is telling it. That is also part of the story. What is not disputed is what happened next. Hrolfdir, desperate to retake the Reach, and with no Imperial troops available, turned to Ulfric Stormcloak and his militia. He made a promise. Help us retake Markarth, and you and your men will be allowed to worship Talos freely. An act just outlawed under the Treaty Skyrim had been forced to accept. Ulfric agreed. He marched his militia to Markarth. He used the Thuum to shout rebels from the city walls. He took the city. The reconquest was brutal. In-game accounts record that those who did not join Ulfric's forces were exposed to violence. Nords and Reachmen alike, including those deemed old enough to fight who refused. The surviving Reachmen who fled into the hills became the Forsworn, the desperate, Hagraven-aligned brigands who still haunt the Reach when the Dragonborn arrives decades later, unable to go home, unable to stop being a people without a land. When the Imperial Legion arrived to restore order, Ulfric refused to open the gates of Markarth unless the Imperials also agreed to permit free Talos worship in the city. Faced with chaos in the streets and bodies in the roads, the Legion agreed. For a brief window, Talos was worshipped openly in Markarth. The Thalmor found out. The Empire was given a stark choice: arrest Ulfric and his men, or face another war with the Aldmeri Dominion. Hrolfdir, the man who made the promise, arrested the man he had promised. Ulfric and much of his militia were imprisoned. Some Skyrim characters, including Jarl Igmund himself, point to this moment as the true birth of the Stormcloak rebellion. Not when Torrig died, not at Helgen. Here, in the Stone City, in the broken promise, in the understanding Ulfric carried out of prison that the Empire would always, in the end, choose the Thalmor's comfort over its own people's faith. He was not wrong about that. He was also not finished being used. Picture an old woman in a market square in any hold in Skyrim. She is wearing an amulet under her clothes. It is a small thing, carved from bone, strung on rough cord. The symbol on it is one she has carried since childhood. She does not take it out in the open anymore. There are patrols now, men in gold-trimmed robes who will ask her to hand it over, who have the legal authority to arrest her if she refuses. The amulet is Talos. The patrols are Thalmor Justiciars. And the reason this is happening in a Nordic city, in the land Nords have held for centuries, is that the Empire signed a treaty. Talos, Tiber Septim, was human. That is the point. He was born a person, mortal and flawed and capable of dying, and through his deeds and his nature, he was lifted into divinity. For the Nords, who have always lived in a cold land against hard odds, the story of Talos is not just theology. It is a promise. It says, what youth does not determine the ceiling of what you can become. It says, one of the gods was once exactly like you. The Thalmor hate this story not merely because it threatens their theology. They hate it because of what it implies about humans. If a man can become a god, then men are not lesser. The entire edifice of elven supremacy, the claim that the Mer are inherently more ancient, more divine, more worthy than the younger races of men, is undermined by a single Nord who ascended to the Idra. When the White Gold Concordat banned Talos worship, it did not simply remove a shrine from a temple. It told the Nords, officially, legally, under penalty of arrest and torture, that the most important thing they believed about themselves was a lie. That their greatest hero was only a man. That the god who looked like them, who had lived as they had lived, did not exist. This is what Ulfric came home to find. And whatever else is true about him, and there is a great deal that is complicated and worth sitting with, the wound was real. The wound was inflicted deliberately, and the people who inflicted it were still walking freely through Skyrim in their gold-trimmed robes because the Empire allowed them. There is a moment easy to miss that lives quietly inside the Stormcloak questline. Legate Rikke is the Imperial Legion officer in Skyrim under General Tullius. She is a Nord. She is a capable, loyal, genuinely thoughtful soldier who believes the Empire is the only force that can protect Skyrim from the Dominion in the long run. She argues for the Empire with sincerity and strategic clarity. Legate Rikke worships Talos. She serves the Empire that made it illegal. She enforces a law she considers unjust because she believes the long game matters more than the current pain. That is its own kind of faith, a painful, quiet, privately held kind. When the Stormcloak questline ends and she stands before Ulfric in Castle Dour's war room, sword drawn, refusing to surrender, she tells him, "We need the Empire. Without it, Skyrim will assuredly fall to the Dominion." She knows something real. She dies for it. In the Stormcloak ending, she does not yield. She fights and falls in the war room of the city that banned her god. Not a villain. A soldier who carried two contradictions for years and never found a way to put either one down. Her story will matter again before we reach the end of this. But first, a king has to die. In 4E201, the year the Dragonborn wakes up in a cart headed for Helgen, Ulfric Stormcloak did what everyone in Skyrim already knows he did. He challenged High King Torrig to a duel. The accounts of what happened in the Great Hall of Solitude vary, as so many things in this history do. Ulfric says it was a challenge in the Old Nord tradition, that he came to demonstrate how far Skyrim had fallen under Imperial rule, that Torrig accepted the challenge, and that the Thuum he used threw the young king to the ground before he finished him with his sword. "A fair fight," he says. "The old way. General Tullius calls it assassination. The Empire calls it murder." Sibylla Stentor, the court mage of Solitude, recounts the moment in her dialogue. Ulfric arrived at Solitude's gates asking for an audience. The court assumed he was there to formally request independence. They thought, even in those last minutes, that he had come to ask. By the time they understood what he had actually come to do, it was already too late. Torrig was young. Based on the surrounding dialogue and context, he appears to have been privately sympathetic to the Stormcloak's concerns about Talos worship, even while publicly maintaining the Imperial position. He was also deeply outmatched. Ulfric had spent a decade training his voice on the mountain above the world. Torrig had not. Whether the duel was fair in the technical sense, it was never equal. The outcome was never in doubt. Ulfric fled to Windhelm. The Imperial Legion mobilized. Months later, they caught him at Darkwater Crossing and threw him in chains for execution at Helgen, gagged, so he could not use his voice to escape. The other prisoner waiting for the axe that morning was a traveler from out of province, in the wrong place at the wrong time, bound for the same block. The one who would, eventually, decide which of these sides would win, and carry a piece of information in their pack that neither side would ever know existed. By the time the Dragonborn arrives, the Civil War has already divided the holds along lines with deep historical memory beneath them. The split between Eastern and Western Skyrim, Stormcloak East, Imperial West, mirrors a division from centuries earlier called the War of Succession. These territories remember choosing sides. The walls of Windhelm remember. The stones of Solitude remember. The Stormcloaks hold Eastmarch, Winterhold, the Rift, and the Pale. Their base is the palace of the Kings in Windhelm, the ancient Nordic capital where Ulfric sits on a throne surrounded by his commanders. His field general is Galmar Stonefist, a man who believes the coming war with the Dominion is not just possible, but inevitable, and that Skyrim must be hardened for it before it arrives. The day the Empire signed that treaty, Galmar says in dialogue, was the day the Empire died. He is speaking as a soldier who has decided that an institution willing to trade its people's gods for peace is already hollow inside. The Imperial Legion holds the West, Hafengar, Hjalmarch, the Reach, Falkreath. Their command is in Solitude, where General Tullius runs the military operation with brisk, unsentimental efficiency. Tullius is not a Nord. He does not pretend to understand the Nord's attachment to Talos. He considers the Civil War a strategic catastrophe, a distraction from the real enemy, a wound the Aldmeri Dominion must be watching with considerable satisfaction. He is right about that last part in ways he does not fully know. The most important hold in the early war is Whiterun. Jarl Balgruuf the Greater sits at its center, genuinely torn. He permits quiet Talos worship in his city. He believes, with the sincerity of a man who has actually thought it through, that the Aldmeri Dominion is the true threat, and that the White Gold Concordat, however painful, was the only way to survive long enough to fight them again. He is not the Empire's man because he loves the Empire. He is the Empire's man because he thinks bowing now may be the cost of fighting later. And watching all of it from their embassy in the hills above Solitude, First Emissary Elenwen hosts parties for Skyrim's nobility. She maintains her justiciar's operations. She files her intelligence reports. She is the same Elenwen who interrogated Ulfric Stormcloak in the Great War, the same woman who assigned him as an asset. She is still in Skyrim. She has been here the whole time. She has a chest in her private quarters. The Dragonborn will eventually open it. There is a document inside that chest that most players read once and never fully sit with. It is the Thalmor dossier on Ulfric Stormcloak, a canon intelligence report, not speculation, not inference from environment, a literal operational file, and it reads as follows. Ulfric first came to Thalmor attention during the Great War, when he was captured during the campaign for the White Gold Tower. Under interrogation, he was identified as potentially valuable, the son of the Jarl of Windhelm, trained by the Greybeards, a man with unusual capabilities. He was broken. He was assigned as an asset to his interrogator, Elenwen, who would become first emissary and ambassador to Skyrim. He was made to believe that the information he gave during interrogation was crucial to the fall of the Imperial City. The Imperial City had already fallen before he broke. He was released. He was allowed to escape. He returned to the world carrying guilt for information that had changed nothing, believing he had betrayed his people. And the Thalmor noted that after the war, contact was established, and he proved his worth as an asset. Now hold all of that against everything you know about Ulfric Stormcloak. The war he started, the war Nords are dying in right now, on both sides, to determine whether Skyrim will remain under an empire that bans Talos worship or become a free kingdom. This war is classified in the Thalmor's own operational notes as something they want to continue. Not end, continue. The document is explicit. As long as the Civil War proceeds in its current indecisive fashion, the Thalmor should remain hands-off. A Stormcloak victory is also to be avoided, the dossier confirms, so even indirect aid to either side must be carefully managed. The Thalmor do not want the Stormcloaks to win. They do not want the Empire to win. They want both sides to bleed for as long as possible, draining Skyrim's military strength, keeping the Empire distracted, preventing the unified force that could actually challenge the Dominion from ever forming. Every soldier who dies at Whiterun, every hold that changes hands, every family in every hold torn between loyalties they genuinely hold. This is what the Dominion's operational strategy considers a favorable outcome. The man leading the rebellion for Skyrim's freedom and the right to worship a god who represents human ascendancy. That man was shaped, in part, in an interrogation room by the very supremacists he is now fighting against. And he never found out. There is no record anywhere in the game of Ulfric learning the contents of that dossier. You can carry it in your pack through every battle, every hold, every conversation with Stormcloak soldiers who believe they are fighting for a free Skyrim. You cannot show it to anyone. The war will reach its conclusion, whichever conclusion it reaches, without anyone on either side knowing what the Thalmor knew and planned and measured from the beginning. Fasendil, an Altmer soldier serving in the Imperial Legion who opposes the Dominion, says it plainly in the Rift. The Thalmor are behind the unrest in Skyrim. He is right. He is also just one voice among thousands who will never read the document that proves it. It is worth sitting for a moment with what both sides actually believe, stripped of the noise. The Stormcloaks are not simply nationalists, though some of their members are. Their core argument is the Empire surrendered something sacred. The Jarls were never consulted. The Thalmor now walk openly through Skyrim harassing civilians, and the Empire will not protect us because the Empire is afraid. The only way to preserve what we are, as a people, as worshippers of the gods who once lived as we live, is to take our country back. When we are strong enough, we will face the Dominion ourselves. The Imperials are not simply occupiers, though some of their members act like it. Their core argument is, the Aldmeri Dominion nearly destroyed us once, and we survived only because we held together. An independent, war-weakened Skyrim fighting the Dominion alone will fall. The Concordat is not a surrender. It is a delay. We bow on Talos now so that we can live long enough to fight the war that actually matters, on terms we can win. Sibyl Stentor in Solitude calls the Dominion a sleeping beast that Skyrim cannot slay alone. She is not wrong about the danger. She has lived long enough to have seen the shape of what is coming. Both arguments are sincere. Both describe real costs. Both are made by people who have thought it through and reached different conclusions about which pain is survivable. The cruelest thing the Thalmor ever did to Skyrim was not the interrogation rooms or the Justiciar patrols. It was this. They put the two sides of the same wound against each other, and they did it well, enough that the bleeding could look, from a distance, like a choice. Not manipulation. Architecture. The Civil War was not an accident they exploited. It was a structure they helped construct, using a man they had broken, a promise a Jarl had shattered, and a treaty an emperor had signed under duress. And then they sat in the hills above Solitude and watched it do exactly what it was built to do. The war ends differently depending on who wins it. Both endings carry a weight that is different from what either side expected. In the Stormcloak ending, Ulfric and his forces fight their way through Solitude to Castle Dour, where General Tullius has made his final stand. Legate Rikke is there, the Nord woman who worshipped Talos in secret while enforcing the law that banned it. She refuses to yield. She tells Ulfric in her last moments, "We need the Empire. Without it, Skyrim will assuredly fall to the Dominion." She knows something real. She fights for it. She falls in the Hope of Term, war room of the city that outlawed her god. Tullius, facing defeat, asks Ulfric if he wants to know where Ulfric's people go when they die. There is something in the flatness of that question. Not cruelty, not defiance, just a man at the bottom of a thing he never believed he would lose. He was not the enemy in the truest sense. He was a general doing a general's work in a war he thought was a distraction. He was right about that. He just did not know how right. After the battle, Ulfric stands before his men. He names the fallen. He names the future. He tells his people that Skyrim is free. And then, in a quieter conversation afterward, he names the thing he is afraid of. What I fear is that the Thalmor will see our victory here and turn greater attention to our shores. We must be prepared to face them. He won the war. He is already scanning the horizon for the next one. And in a chest in an embassy in the hills, the document he will never read has already explained that his victory is, from the Thalmor's perspective, the least favorable possible outcome, the one they worked hardest to prevent. In the Imperial ending, the roles reverse. It is Ulfric who stands cornered, Galmar dead, the palace of the kings finally broken open. He says, "I'll never surrender Skyrim into the hands of a corrupt and dying empire." Rikke answers him, "She who loved both Skyrim and the Empire enough to serve one for the sake of the other. Skyrim doesn't belong to you, Ulfric." And Ulfric's last words, before the fight that ends him, are, "No, but I belong to her." Even those who read the dossier and believe Ulfric was shaped without knowing it, made into a key and fitted into a lock by people he despised, cannot call those last words constructed. Whatever was planted in him in that interrogation room, whatever false guilt he carried for 25 years, whatever unwitting service he performed for his own enemies, the feeling in those final words is not manufactured. Belonging to a place is not the same as owning it. Belonging to a place means you would die in it, for it, with its name on your lips. He does. There is something that never changes while all of this unfolds. High Hrothgar is still there. The monks are still there. 4 of them now, in the late 4th era. Their numbers dwindled through centuries of silence and isolation. They still walk the cold stone corridors. They still practice the shouts they never use as weapons, turning the voice outward toward the sky rather than toward other people. Their grandmaster, the dragon Parthenax, meditates above them near the peak of the throat of the world, in a stillness so old it has become indistinguishable from the mountain itself. Arngeir, who speaks for the Order, does not pretend the Civil War is not happening. He lives at the top of the world above a province tearing itself apart, and he does not intervene, and he has a reason. The way of the voice holds that his power is not his to use in the service of one side of any human conflict. He is criticized for this by both the Blades and by characters who believe the Greybeards have a responsibility they are refusing to meet. But Arngeir knows something about Ulfric that the war does not know. He knows who that young man was when he climbed 7,000 steps and sat down in the cold to learn peace. He knows what was given to him there. He knows what Ulfric chose to do with it. Ulfric trained for nearly a decade to learn that the most powerful thing in him should never be used to end a life. Then he used it to end a king's life in a great hall while the court looked on, too late to do anything at all. He did not do it because the training failed. He did it because something else. The war, the interrogation room, the broken promise in Markarth, the white gold concordat, and the particular weight of a guilt he carried for information that changed nothing, had pushed him past the edge of what the mountain had taught him. The mountain held none of that. The mountain waited. The mountain is still waiting. There is a child in Windhelm named Sophie. She sells flowers in the market near the palace. She stands outside even in the snow, even in the grey wind that comes off the coast of Eastmarch, even when no one is buying. Her father died in the war. Her mother died before that. She is there when the Dragonborn arrives, holding flowers in the cold. She is not part of any quest. She has no bearing on any outcome. She is just a child in a market who lost her father to a war about gods and treaties, and the accumulated grievances of a people who were asked to give too much. There are children like her in solitude too. There are wives in the Imperial holds who do not know yet which letters they will receive. There are Stormcloak soldiers in the Rift who believe genuinely that what they are doing is holy, that dying with a weapon in your hand means Sovngarde, and that Sovngarde is worth the cost. They are not wrong about everything. Neither side is wrong about everything. The Thalmor sit in their embassy and wait. The war in Skyrim was always a prologue to something larger. The people dying in it, on both sides, with genuine courage and genuine grief, are writing that prologue in their own blood, without knowing the full shape of the story they are inside. That is what every war looks like from within it. The people who understand the shape are rarely the ones doing the dying. The ones who die belong to something. The ones who planned it belong to nothing. Think back to the beginning. The young man in the stone corridor, high above the world, learning to be quiet. The cold that lives in the rock of High Hrothgar. The monks who never raise their voices because their voices can shake the world apart. He is good at this. The stillness suits him, even if he does not know yet how much he will carry of it, and how much of it will be taken from him. He will go to war. He will be captured and broken and made to carry a guilt that was constructed in him by his enemies, designed to make him useful to them. He will come home to a city in mourning. He will learn what was stripped from his people. He will, over years, become the storm his name already promised. He will never know about the document in the chest. Now the corridor is empty. Ulfric is gone, either to Sovngarde, his name spoken in the sword song of a final stand, or to whatever quiet the gods hold for a man who spent everything he had on a cause that was real and manipulated and correct, and partly the instrument of his own enemies all at once. Both things can be true. In this story, both things are true. The corridor is cold. The mountain holds its silence. The war cost something that no victory or defeat could fully repay. That is not a reason it should not have been fought. Sometimes the cost is the only honest measure of how much something mattered. But it is a reason to see it clearly, to refuse the version of the story that makes one side simply right and the other simply wrong. The ones who are remembered most clearly are usually the ones who believed most completely. Ulfric, Rikke, Balgruf, who kept his city out of the fighting as long as he could. Sofia, who kept selling flowers in the cold. They all believed in something. Most of them never knew what was arranged around them. That is also, if you look at it honestly, something you recognize. The world is full of arrangements that were in place before you arrived. The things worth holding on to, what you belong to, what you would die for, what you carry across the years even when it costs you. Those are the things that are yours, regardless of what anyone constructed around them. If this story held you somewhere tonight, if any part of it is still with you as the night deepens and your thoughts begin to settle, consider leaving a like or subscribing so more of these can find their way to you. It means more than you might think. And now, let go. The cold mountain holds it for you. The stones remember. The fire is still burning somewhere, small and warm, in whatever corner of the world knows how to keep a flame through the long winter. You do not have to solve it tonight. Rest.